Here we have a Tesla Model 3. This one's named River, after River Tam from Firefly. She's named that because she's eccentric, quirky, and often goes through fits. Anyway, this one is for sale. Now, I've owned this for about 3 years and 40,000 miles, and I've enjoyed it for the most part during that time. There are things about Tesla ownership that I wish I knew before I pulled the trigger. So if you're on the fence about buying one of these cars, well, today you're gonna find out why I'm selling this thing, and maybe question if you should get one yourself. All right, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a ton of hate from this video, especially from all the Tesla fans out there. And I do wanna get one thing out of the way. I don't dislike this car. It's not like it's the worst car I've ever owned by any means, but there are just a few things about it that, for as expensive of a machine as it is, it's just a little bit disappointing. One of the first complaints I have with the Tesla is that everything in this car seems to be in beta, whether it's the windshield wipers, the automatic high beams, the lane assist, self-driving mode, it's all beta. If you browse the Tesla forums, there are a plethora of people that have had issues with the rain-sensing windshield wipers. Basically, Tesla decided in order to save money that they would use the cameras to automate the rain-sensing wipers rather than a rain sensor that pretty much every other manufacturer uses. The fact is, though, is that it just doesn't really work all that well, and it's the same thing with the high beam assist as well. Most car manufacturers use like a light sensor. Tesla uses the cameras. This car has no idea what an oncoming traffic looks like. There's no idea what a raindrop looks like. There are like YouTube videos out there that, you know, basically it's like an ongoing joke that the windshield wipers of the Tesla seem to sense everything but rain. It's the given theme with this car, though, that everything is in beta. I mean, you bring it to Tesla with a problem, and half the time you get a response of, well, we're still working on that, it's still in beta. But it's like, I don't want something in beta. This is a very expensive car. I just want it to work. But no, that's not what you get with the Tesla half the time. The lane assist, for example, the lane drifting out of your lane alert, whatever the hell it's called, for example, if there's somebody like running or biking or walking on the side of the road, and I have to try to sort of move over to the yellow line slightly to avoid them, the car will make one of the most unnerving alarms you've ever heard in your entire life. In fact, it is so disturbing, I find it more dangerous, that alarm is more dangerous than if you had just let me drift into oncoming traffic and let the car explode. But that said, if I fall asleep behind the wheel and manage to veer off into the shoulder and careen into a tree, no, the Tesla doesn't say a goddamn thing about that. And then it goes right back to self-driving and autonomous mode. I mean, basically, every update that Tesla has ever made on this car, it seems to have made things worse. It used to be that when we first got the car, you could put it in like self-driving mode and it could sort of sit there for about 20 seconds before needing any kind of interaction from the driver. And I know that you were supposed to do that from the very beginning. Tesla never claimed that, even though it's called autopilot, that it's actually autopilot. But you know, when you give it a name like autopilot, you expect to be able to sort of just let it do its own thing, and that's not really a possibility in the car anymore. Now, part of that isn't necessarily Tesla's fault. A lot of that is government pushback and car accidents, regulations, these kinds of things. But nevertheless, Tesla did promise autonomous self-driving mode back in 2018 when we first bought it, and they said by the end of the year, the car would be driving itself from office to home, and end of the year came, and then 2019 rolled around, and then it was end of the year. It was bound to happen. 2020 rolled around, end of the year. 2021, end of the year. Well, guess what, Tesla? It's the end of the year, and my car still doesn't drive itself from office to home.
And that's currently being beta tested and will go into wide release hopefully next month. So we're probably only a month away from having autonomous driving, at least for highways and for relatively simple roads.
And that goes with Tesla Taxi and the costs of supercharging. Tesla Taxi, of course, is not going to happen until full self-driving is possible. Oh, and by the way, don't get me started on the Gimmick that is the summon mode. That thing is worthless. It takes 10 seconds just to get the car to wake up from sleep, then you hit it, then you got to get to a certain GPS coordinate. The whole like having it drive to you when you're in a parking lot thing is it's a mess. It never, ever works properly. And anybody that says that it does is either lying or they're the only car in the parking lot. But basically the car will spook itself out and just stop at the slightest hint of a leaf blowing. Anyway, back to what I was saying about Tesla over-promising and under-delivering. Even stuff like supercharging has gotten a lot more expensive than what it used to be. The rates have increased on supercharging, and it is still cheaper to basically fill your tank of electricity than it is a tank of gas, but it's getting to the point that it may not be all that cheaper in maybe just a few more years. Now, obviously, if you've got a Tesla battery at the house and you've got the solar charging, then you'll have, of course, a car that runs on solar energy, which is awesome, and you'll never, of course, get that with a gas-powered car because it's very unlikely you'll have an oil refinery in your backyard. But be that as it may, supercharging just doesn't quite seem to be as cheap as it once was. Now, that is one thing that I will give the Tesla, however, is that maintenance costs in general are very inexpensive. For example, I have not spent so much as a dime on this car in terms of maintenance. Now, Tesla wants you to spend, I think it's like $2,500 every year or a couple of years to do some sort of big maintenance thing where really all they do is pretty much replace the air filter, but you can do that yourself for like $16. But no, I've never done it. It's never had an issue. Really, the car just needs an inspection, tires when they wear out, brakes when they wear out. Maintenance on this car is quite cheap, but a lot of those costs are outweighed by things like property tax, which on this car is pretty outrageous. Some states, including Virginia, levy a huge fine on the car for it being electric. Basically, you're not paying gasoline, so they charge you more for your registration. And then, of course, let's not forget insurance, which is more expensive than a Porsche 911. Who would have guessed? Another gripe that I have with this car is that it is just not built that well. And it's not just reliability in terms of the mechanics either. I mean, the inside of the car is just kind of cheap and chintzy. It's just sort of made of materials that aren't particularly good. It's very plasticky, a lot of scraping plastics and just all around, I don't know, just not great. Gaps in the panels, materials that are just sort of lackluster. This white vegan leather that they sell everybody on now, it has held up pretty well, but they love to boast about the white color and how it's stain resistant and yada, yada, yada. No, if you got blue jeans on, it will stain it, and pretty badly. That said, they do look, other than the blue stains, they do look more or less as good as they did from when we first got the car. It doesn't like wrinkle or tear quite as bad as some of the cheaper leathers out there. But that's still not the point. The point is that the materials overall, you can just sort of tell the craftsmanship just isn't quite there. Some of the stitching on the seats and that sort of thing, the steering wheel, you get the idea. And that goes doubly for the reliability of the car. This car has spent more time in the shop than it has spent on the road. Now, I've been very lucky. The stuff that I have had to do on my car has all been under warranty. But if it hasn't been under warranty, my wife and I calculated what the costs of repairing this car would be out of warranty. And in 3 years and 40,000 miles, we have generated something like $10,000 worth of repair tickets on this car. Things like windows not opening, door handles doing funky things, odd tire rod issues, ball bearings, you name it. This car has had, I owned Range Rovers. This car has just had a series of issues. Reliability just isn't there, and it doesn't seem like Tesla has gotten that much better with their reliability either. And as far as just the overall sort of chintzy quality of things like their materials and their paints, even things like the Tesla Model S Plaid, it's a $130,000 car, and people are complaining about the quality of the paint and materials and other things. You know, love it or hate it with the yoke, you know, I guess that's one thing, but I mean, there's gaps in the center console that you can lose your license in or cards or papers in, whatever. They're just some very curious design choices. And I do like that Tesla is very daring with their approach to design. I mean, they're like one of the first and only companies that just have a big iPad sat in the center of your dashboard that does and tells you everything, and it's very, very intuitive. You know, we really kind of like the center computer for the Model 3, but nevertheless, it just sort of seems like there's something absent in the quality. Customer service is another thing that's not all that great either. Now, it is really nice that Tesla will send somebody to your house for a lot of things. Basically, they have this thing called Tesla Mobile, which is like an off-site mechanic. He comes to your house and fixes little small issues that he can. And it used to be also that when you had an issue that you had to bring the car into Tesla, they would be pretty quick to give you a loaner vehicle. But it seems lately that they're not as quick to give you a loaner vehicle anymore. If they have them and you're lucky, you might get one, but otherwise they kind of wrestle with you a little bit. And customer service in general is kind of a pain in the ass. You can't talk to anybody on the phone. You have to do everything through the app, which some people may like that. I don't particularly care for it all that much. If you ever get into a wreck, whether it's your fault or not, you can expect to be without your car for at least a month. In both situations, one time when we were rear-ended, and that was a pretty bad one, then another time we hit a deer, we were without the car for over 3 months. Because Tesla's not very good with their supply chain and making like extra parts for things. Anything that they're making, they're putting into new cars because of all the backlog. So as a result, you're basically, even if you go to a Tesla authorized repair center, you're basically left without a car for several months. There was one guy on a Tesla forum that reported being without his Model S for 11 months while he was waiting on a tailgate. That's pretty crazy. But anyway, customer service on the car, though, that is something that sort of suffers. If you're out of warranty, you pretty much can expect never to leave a Tesla dealership without spending at least $1,000 on something. Tesla seems to make up excuses and reasons for things happening that just don't need to be a thing. They'll also passively push off the blame, and I think a lot of that is dependent on what dealer you're, of course, going to. But Tesla loves to blame things on you and other third-party things. They never really want to take responsibility for the car doing goofy-ass stuff. But again, customer service is probably no worse than like Hyundai or something like that. In general, the car just has so many little quirks and things that it just grows tiring. I'll get into this a little bit more later on, but something like getting into the car is always a chore because the Bluetooth never quite picks up on the phone. There are issues with the radio not working sometimes. The seat memory, where, basically when you get in, it's supposed to know your seat profile, something that cars have had for like 15 years, but it never really quite adjusts the mirrors and the seat to where you had it last. And, I've even had Tesla mechanics witnessed the problem, and they've cleared the profiles and all these other things, but it's still never managed to fix the issue. Sometimes I'll get in the car after my wife has driven it and the mirror won't adjust to my setting, but the seat will. Just these little weird, bizarre quirks like that. So these seats, this like vegan plasticky leather that they're made from, they get super hot, and especially in the summertime. If you're somebody that's like prone to sweating or something like that, you will just, you'll die in these chairs. I don't know why they couldn't have put ventilated seats in the Model 3. They did it because it was it's on the Model S, and they want people to upgrade to the Model S. You should have let people pay for the ventilated seats in the Model 3. It really makes for a very unpleasant road trip experience. There always just seems to be some quirky issue with this car. One of the most annoying things possible is that the Model 3s do not come with a traditional key fob. They only come with these two credit card looking things that act as your keys, and then of course you can use your phone to pair it. Shut the fuck up. And then of course you can use your phone to pair with the car as well, which acts as like a key. But the thing is though, is that if you are an iPhone user, and once again if you browse, there's that goddamn lane assist at its finest. I think I finally got an example of it on camera, which is awesome. Anyway, and by the way, I was not doing anything outrageous there. I was not drifting out of the lane even slightly. Anyway, if you are an iPhone user, and there's tons of people that have this complaint in the forums, is that almost every single time you try to get into your car, the doors just won't open. And Tesla, of course, blames Apple for their low-powered Bluetooth mode and phase, that it's just not strong enough to get a signal, and blah, 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 blah. Tesla blaming everybody else except themselves. But the fact is that they should have just given a goddamn key fob with the car in the first place. Either that, or they needed to do something about whatever the radio is that detects your phone, the presence of your phone. They needed to do something different and better with that. But basically, I think it's anywhere. I think they just tried to blame the phone and not the car, but it's very, very annoying. You got groceries in your arms, you're wrestling with the trunk, wrestling with the doors. It becomes very, very frustrating that you cannot get into your own car. What if there was an axe murderer chasing you and you had to get in the car fast? You couldn't, you'd be dead. If you own a Tesla, you will die because you cannot get in the car. Please don't get me wrong, there are a lot of things to like about this car. It just seems though that for every good thing it has, there's kind of a little setback or drawback about it as well. But rather than just poop all over it, let me go over some of the things that I do enjoy about this car. It's fast. I own a Porsche 911, and I'd argue that in a straight line, this thing is probably faster. Now, obviously, the Porsche is going to win on a racetrack every single time, but nevertheless, this thing for daily driving is an extraordinary amount of fun. It's practical. It's cheap to use. You can just plug it in when you get home, and you don't have to worry about gas or filling up or anything like that. And Tesla as a company as a whole, they paved the way for the electric car. They have the infrastructure, their supercharged infrastructure is just second to none, and it will be very, very difficult for other manufacturers to catch up. But there are some drawbacks to the design of Teslas as well. For example, and I know this is the pros section, so I shouldn't be coming up with another con, but the fact is that when we first bought this car, we were the only Tesla on the road, and people were absolutely enamored by looking at the thing. I mean, after all, it is a good looking car. But now there are literally thousands of Teslas roaming around Williamsburg, Virginia, so it's not so special anymore. And even more so is that Tesla doesn't really do anything with their cars to make them stand out. They only really have like 5 colors and 2 interior options, so there's not a whole lot that you can do to sort of personalize it and make it your own. On contrasting that, if you search for Porsche 911s, there's almost, or for that matter, even like Jeeps or Mustangs, there are almost no two that are alike. But I've seen plenty of white-on-white Teslas roaming around town. So all in all, I think that if you buy this car, you will probably enjoy it very, very much. I know that we did for 3 years and 40,000 miles. But it's time to move on. It's time to get something that just has a little more character, that's not quite as frustrating to own and operate. It's time to get something else. So if you're looking to buy a Tesla and you're a little bit on the fence about it, I hope this video was helpful in helping you with your decision. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we will be back with another video really soon.